Guys, the new character of the 5.8 patch, Ineffa, has dropped in the latest beta of Genshin Impact. She's a very important release because she's the first character to come out from Nod Cry, so that's quite interesting. Obviously, we're not getting the region in the next patch already, but Ineffa will function as a teaser for it, both from a kit and a story standpoint, so let's see how good she is and what we can expect from her. For starters, Ineffa is a 5-star Electro Polyarm character, the third limited Electro to have this weapon type after Raiden and Cyno. Her aesthetic is quite innovative for Genshin specifically, as she's a robot, which by itself makes her pretty interesting to me. Kind of reminds me of Aegis from Persona 3. As for her playstyle, she's a support that enables a whole different aspect for her element. In fact, her whole shtick is that while she's on team, she changes the Electrocharge reaction to Lunar Electrocharge, which in short is a modification that makes it work completely differently. This isn't a Nidhu type thing, to be clear. What Nidhu did for Bloom was basically just making the reaction stronger and better. Meanwhile, Ineffa is changing the reaction completely, even aesthetically, as Lunar Charge won't simply have the small electricity visual, but rather create a whole black cloud that spawns thunder on opponents' heads. Do you want to get Skirk but you don't have enough gems to do so? I think I might have the right solution for you. This video has been sponsored by LD Shop, a website that allows you to buy Genesis crystals for much cheaper than it will cost in-game, so you can hopefully get all the characters you want. Through LD Shop, you'll be able to get discounts that start from 15% off and can get considerably bigger depending on the specific deal. This is, of course, all done legally, and there is no risk of ban in-game really, something I can testify for myself because I bought from LD Shop before and also other similar means and never had any issues. The website offers a special coupon upon registration to get an additional discount and even a VIP system that gives you a Welkin Moon if you spend over $80. The whole process is also pretty easy and straightforward. You just have to fill out the forms that require your UID and server region, pay through the site, and you will receive the Genesis crystal in-game shortly after. This way, you will be able to get the amazing characters you want, but at a lower price than you would otherwise pay. You'll be able to reach LD Shop and get discounts by clicking on the link in the description below. Now, the way this reaction works is quite complicated, so bear with me. For starters, it has a different base damage and elemental mastery scaling formula from normal Electrocharge. The base damage is the fixed base value the reaction has at a certain level, kind of how your character has a total attack that is then used as a base for the damage calculation. The elemental mastery scaling formula determines how much the reaction damage will increase with elemental mastery investment. Compared to normal Electrocharge, both the base and the elemental mastery scaling especially are lower, with the second being actually similar to Quicken in that regard. The Quicken comparison is actually pretty accurate here, however, because just like Quicken, this reaction can crit. And that's the one revolutionary thing here. Like, Ineffa turns Electrocharge from a reaction that completely depends on elemental mastery to a reaction that mostly depends on crit. The main thing this accomplishes is that, at least in theory, it makes Electrocharge much better on traditional damage dealing teams. Think of Chlorend Electrocharge, Raiden Electrocharge, Varesa Electrocharge. All of these teams had access to the reaction already, but it did very little for them, because for most of the characters of these teams, you don't want to build elemental mastery. Screw Kokomi, I guess, though. Another interesting thing here is that it seems that this reaction takes into account the stats of all the characters involved in triggering it. Basically, there can be up to 3 triggers for this reaction, so 3 characters applying their element and generating it, and the total damage is the sum of these 3 triggers, but the formula is different for all of them. Basically, for the character that will contribute to the most damage, it works exactly as explained before, while the characters contributing to less damage will be subjected to a formula that halves their output or even divides it by 12. As far as I understand, there can be 3 triggers in the eventuality a third Hydro or Electro character applies their element while the Electrocharge reaction is already on, since Electrocharge is basically a status that remains on opponents. For the normal reaction, the last character to apply the element simply becomes the owner of the reaction, so the character that fully contributes to it in terms of elemental mastery scaling damage. But for Lunar Charge, all the characters will be involved pretty much in the same way for the whole time. time, so it basically minimizes the randomness. Sadly, for now, there seems to be a big con, and that is that the lunar charge seems to have a 2 seconds internal cooldown, meaning that it will hit opponents at most once every 2 seconds. Meanwhile, for normal electro charge, it can hit as frequently as 1 time every half a second, so it basically hits 4 times more frequently. This by itself kind of massively lowers the value of the new reaction so far, because it by itself outweighs all of the pros I just talked about. Mechanically speaking, the rest of the things I mentioned are pretty good, but this thing alone ruins everything because it makes the reaction's total damage quite underwhelming. Anyways, let's look at the rest of her kit to see if it gets any better. She's an attack scaling character in every single way possible. First, she actually increases the base damage of lunar charge depending on how much attack she has, capping at 14% increase for the whole team when she has 2000, which is quite easy to reach. Secondarily, maybe more importantly, she's an attack scaling shielder. This makes her follow a trend that became popular starting from Fontaine, that of a defensive character that also provides meaningful things offensively. Her shield scaling isn't really impressive, but since she can focus a lot of her build on attack stats, it ends up being acceptable, especially because, as I'll tell you in a second, she's able to use Tenacity of the Millelate with full uptime. In fact, this comes from her Elemental skill, which other than creating a shield, it makes her summon a robot companion that hits opponents in range every 2 seconds. Additionally, if there is a lunar charge reaction in play when these hits occur, the robot will launch an additional hit. These two things make it very similar to what Oz is for Fischl. So, a companion that hits opponents regularly, and then some more if an electro reaction is triggered in specific circumstances. Moreover, based on the footage I've seen, the robot hits on a quite wide AoE and also teleports to the opponents directly to hit them, so just from a mechanical standpoint, it's better than Oz. Lastly, her elemental burst is quite simple. It launches a strong electro attack and resummons the robot. Again, mirroring Fischl a lot here, because she can also resummon Oz with her elemental burst. On top of that, it makes Ineffa give the whole team an elemental mastery bonus, which scales on her total attack. This is really interesting, because it not only makes her help the lunar charge damage for her main compositions, but I think it also gives her a role on teams like Quicken, Quick Bloom, so those Dendro compositions that really benefit a lot from Elemental Mastery. Like her providing a team-wide Elemental Mastery buffs could be very nice for those teams, especially because she's also a shielder. So even in the case she's not dealing any damage on those teams, she should be pretty good, like a cookie upgrade potentially. Overall, just from a concept standpoint, I like her because she's a defensive character that also provides something meaningful offensively, which I love, but in terms of team results, it's not looking really good so far. I did a team calculation of Chlorine Electro Charge, although I want to stress out that this is very subjected to change because we're talking about a new elemental reaction after all, so new findings are behind the corner here. For now, it's not impressive at all. It basically is on the same level as the best existing Chlorine Electro Charge compositions, which already were far from being her best options. I just calculated this because that's all I had time for, but as a baseline, I think it conveys the idea that it's not looking too hot at the moment, especially because this is a team that can reliably trigger the lunar reaction for the whole rotation. So, while I like her conceptually, it's not looking too hot at the moment, like she's not particularly strong at all. Of course, since we're talking about a new elemental reaction, things could easily change. They could be making a lot of tweaks throughout beta, but for now, that's how things are at the moment. And with this, I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe, also go check LD's shop in the description below, and bye bye.